The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent when the human ambassador stepped forward. Kira Park was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had served Earth for 40 years. She had smiled through insults. She had laughed at jokes made at humanity's expense. She had always been patient. Today, she was not smiling. The 12 elder species sat in their massive chairs, arranged in a circle around the speaking platform. They were ancient races who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. The crystalline dominion with their bodies of living glass. The void walkers who existed partly in another dimension. The iron collective with their mechanical forms. They looked down at the human ambassador like adults watching a child throw a tantrum. High Arbiter Velthan, leader of the crystalline dominion and current head of the council, raised one hand. Light passed through his transparent fingers. "Ambassador Park, you requested this emergency session. Speak your piece." Kira Park looked around the chamber slowly. She looked at each elder species representative. She seemed to be memorizing their faces. Then she pulled out a small device and placed it on the speaking platform. "This message is from the United Earth government," she said. Her voice was steady. "Earth withdraws from all galactic treaties, effective immediately. All human citizens are being recalled from alien space. All trade agreements are canceled. All research partnerships are ended. All diplomatic channels are closed." She paused. The chamber remained silent, but confused looks passed between the representatives. "Do not contact us," Kira finished. "This is humanity's final transmission to the Galactic Council." She picked up her device, turned, and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the massive chamber. High Arbiter Velthan laughed. It was a strange sound, like wind chimes breaking. "Ambassador Park, please. What is this drama? If you are unhappy with the trade negotiations, we can discuss new terms. There is no need for such emotional displays." Kira stopped at the door. She did not turn around. "Goodbye, Arbiter." Then she was gone. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions. Advisors rushed to communication terminals. But Velthan remained calm. He raised his hand again, and slowly the chamber quieted. "The humans are young," he said. "They have been part of galactic society for only 300 years. They do not understand how things work. They will return when they realize how much they need us." The representative of the Void Walkers, a shadow that somehow had shape, spoke in a whispering voice. "And if they do not return?" Velthan's crystalline face formed something like a smile. "Then we will remind them of their place." Far across the galaxy, Admiral Tay Sun stood on the bridge of the flagship Earth's Resolve. He was a tall man with a scarred face and tired eyes. He had fought pirates. He had negotiated with hostile species. He had seen the best and worst of the galaxy. Now he watched as hundreds of human ships gathered at the edge of Sol's system. "All vessels accounted for, Admiral," reported Commander Yuna. She was young, brilliant, and deeply worried. "But, sir, I must ask again, why are we doing this? We have spent centuries building relationships with other species. We have friends out there, partners. Why are we abandoning everything?" Tay Sun turned to look at her. His expression was heavy with knowledge he wished he did not have. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about the founding protocol?" Yuna frowned. "Nothing. I have never heard of it." "Neither had I until 3 weeks ago." Tay Sun walked to the main view screen. Earth hung in the distance, blue and green and beautiful. "The Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Have you ever wondered why no species has ever challenged them?" "Because they are powerful," Yuna said. "Because they are wise. Because they have technology far beyond ours. Because every species that could challenge them has been destroyed." Tay Sun's voice was cold, or suppressed, or manipulated into weakness. "The founding protocol is their plan. Every 5,000 years they identify young species with potential. Species that might one day grow strong enough to threaten elder dominance. and they eliminate that threat before it can grow. Yuna's face went pale. And humanity? We are scheduled for reduction within the next century. They have already begun. The trade restrictions, the technology limits, the subtle insults designed to keep us humble. Tay soon turned back to face her. We found a probe, Commander. An ancient probe from a species called the Bright Ones. They were like us once, curious, ambitious, full of hope. The Council erased them so completely that no one even remembers they existed. So we run? Yuna asked. We hide? No. Tay-san smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We prepare. The Council thinks we are children. They think our technology is primitive. They think they know everything about us. He gestured to the gathered fleet. They are wrong. The last human vessels crossed into Sol system space. Behind them, massive structures began to unfold. Technology that humanity had hidden for 100 years. Generators that drew power from the sun itself. Projectors that bent space and light. A barrier formed around Earth's solar system. It was invisible to normal sensors. It looked like nothing at all, but when a Council scout ship tried to enter, it simply stopped. Its engines still ran. Its crew was unharmed. But it could not move forward even 1 meter. Across the galaxy, communication stations tried to contact Earth. There was no response. They tried to send probes. The probes vanished. They tried to scan the Sol system. Their sensors showed only emptiness. Earth had gone dark. In the Council chamber, High Arbiter Velthan received the reports with growing unease. He had expected the humans to make noise. He had expected threats and demands. He had not expected silence. Silence was dangerous. Silence meant planning. Silence meant patience. For the first time in 1,000 years, Velthan felt something he barely recognized: fear. 6 months passed, and the galaxy began to break. It started with small things. A trade route that humans had maintained for decades fell into chaos. Pirates moved in where human patrol ships had once kept order. 3 cargo vessels were destroyed in a single week. The Council sent their own ships to restore peace, but the pirates simply moved to another route, then another. The humans had patrolled 12 major trade lanes. The Council could barely manage 4. Then the medicine ran out. The Velthari hegemony had worked with human scientists on crop modifications for 50 years. Their home planet had poor soil. Without human-engineered seeds, their harvests failed. Millions faced starvation. They begged the Council for help. The Council sent food ships, but it was not enough. It was never enough. On the research station Eternal Light, alien scientists stared at half-finished experiments. Human researchers had left in the middle of critical work: cancer treatments, engine designs, atmospheric processors, all abandoned. The aliens tried to continue alone, but they found that the humans had taken something with them. Not equipment, not data. They had taken understanding. The aliens could read the human notes, but they could not follow the human thinking. It was like trying to finish a song when you had never heard music. High Arbiter Velthan watched these reports with growing frustration. He had expected the humans to suffer without galactic trade. He had expected them to come crawling back within months. Instead, the galaxy was suffering without them. How had these young, primitive creatures become so important? He summoned investigator Mora to his private chamber. Mora was not from an elder species. She belonged to a younger race called the Gentle Ones, known for their curiosity and their honesty. The Council used them for investigations because they could not lie, even if they wanted to. Find out why the humans left, Velthan commanded. Find out what they know, and find out how to bring them back. Mora bowed her soft blue head. I will discover the truth, High Arbiter. She traveled for weeks. She visited abandoned human colonies, now empty and silent. She walked through research stations where human coffee cups still sat on desks. She interviewed hundreds of aliens who had worked alongside humanity. On a mining station near the Galactic Rim, she found her first clue. An old engineer from the Iron Collective remembered something strange. In the weeks before the withdrawal, human scientists had been asking questions. Strange questions about ancient history, about something called the Founding Protocol. "I told them I had never heard of such a thing," the engineer said. His mechanical voice was heavy with confusion. "But they kept asking. They seemed afraid. No, not afraid. Angry. They seemed very angry." Mora continued her investigation. She found more witnesses, more stories. The humans had been searching for something. They had found old records, ancient data files, forgotten archives. And then they had left. On a distant moon, Mora discovered an abandoned human research base. Inside, she found a single data pad that had been left behind. It contained fragments of a document. Most of it was corrupted, but a few sections remained readable. She read them 3 times to make sure she understood. The founding protocol was real. It was a plan created by the elder species 10,000 years ago. Its purpose was simple and terrible: ensure that no younger species ever grew powerful enough to challenge elder dominance. The protocol described methods of control, economic manipulation, technology suppression, cultural interference. And when those methods failed, there were other options: war, disease, extinction. The document listed species that had been managed under the protocol. Mora recognized some names from ancient history. Others she had never heard of. The Bright Ones, the Star Singers, the Dream Weavers, all gone, all erased. And there, at the bottom of the list, marked for future attention, was a single word: humanity. Mora's hands trembled. Her people could not lie, but they could choose not to speak. For a long moment she considered destroying the data pad and walking away. This truth was too dangerous, too terrible, but her nature would not let her hide from truth. She returned to Nexus Prime and requested an audience with the full council. High Arbiter Velthan granted it, expecting good news. Instead, Mora stood before the 12 elder species and told them what she had found. The chamber fell silent. Not the confused silence of 6 months ago. This was the silence of predators whose prey had suddenly shown teeth. "This is nonsense," Velthan said. His crystalline voice cracked with forced calm. "The founding protocol is a myth, a conspiracy theory. This human data pad is clearly fake." "I cannot lie, High Arbiter," Mora said quietly. "You know this. The document is real. The humans discovered your secret. That is why they left." Velthan stood. He towered over her, light fracturing through his glass body. "You will speak of this to no one. You will destroy your findings. You will forget what you have learned. And if I refuse?" The other elder species representatives rose from their seats. Shadows gathered. Metal groaned. Ancient power filled the chamber. Mora understood. She turned and ran. She barely escaped the council chamber. She barely reached her ship. She barely made it off Nexus Prime before council warships appeared behind her. But she escaped, and as she fled into the darkness between stars, she finally understood why the humans had left. They had discovered that they were not partners in a galactic community. They were not friends. They were not even equals. They were prey. And for the first time in their history, they had refused to be hunted. 2 years after the humans disappeared, the Galactic Council made its decision. They would break Earth's barrier by force. The combined fleet was the largest in galactic history. 3,000 warships from 12 elder species gathered at the edge of Sol's system. They brought weapons that could crack planets. They brought technology refined over 10,000 years of dominance. They brought absolute confidence in their own power. High Arbiter Velthan commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Crystal Dawn. He stood on the bridge and looked at the invisible barrier that surrounded human space. His scientists had studied it for 2 years. They still did not understand how it worked. But it was just technology. All technology could be overcome. "Begin the attack," he ordered. The fleet moved forward as one, weapons charged, shields activated. 3,000 ships crossed the boundary into Sol system space and stopped. Every single ship froze in place. Engines still ran at full power. Weapons still glowed with energy. Crews still worked at their stations. But the ships did not move. Not forward, not backward, not in any direction. Velthan screamed orders. He demanded answers. His engineers ran from console to console, checking every system. Everything was working perfectly, but the ship simply would not move. After 3 hours, a message appeared on every screen in the fleet. It was text only, simple words in the common galactic language. "You were warned. Do not contact us. Your ships will be released in 24 hours. Do not return." The message vanished. The fleet waited in frozen silence. And exactly 24 hours later, every ship suddenly regained movement. They drifted backward, pushed gently but firmly out of Sol system space. Not one weapon had been fired. Not one crew member had been harmed. The humans had simply said no. Velthan returned to Nexus Prime in shame. For the first time, the elder species began to doubt. They gathered in secret, without their advisors, without their guards. Just the 12 leaders who had ruled the galaxy for so long. "We must tell them the truth," said the representative of the Void Walkers. "We must admit what the founding protocol is. We must apologize and beg them to return." Apologize? Velthan's crystalline body flashed with anger. "We are the elder species. We built this civilization. We brought order to the chaos. We do not apologize to children. These children just stopped our combined fleet without firing a single shot," the Void Walker replied. "What else are they hiding? What else have they built in secret while we laughed at them?" The argument continued for hours, but slowly the truth emerged. Each elder species had their own secrets about the founding protocol, their own role in suppressing younger races, their own crimes hidden beneath 10,000 years of careful history. The humans were not the first species to be marked for reduction. They were simply the first to discover the plan and escape. Far away on Earth, President Boram addressed the United Nations of Earth. She was a small woman with white hair and eyes that had seen too much. Behind her, screens showed images of the frozen Council fleet. The people of Earth watched in silence. "They came with 3,000 warships," Boram said. "They came with weapons that could destroy worlds. They came believing that power gives them the right to rule us, to control us, to decide when we live and when we die." She paused. The silence stretched across a planet. "We stopped them without killing anyone. We stopped them without becoming what they are. And that is how we will continue. Not through war, not through revenge, through patience, through principles, through being better than those who would destroy us." General Dong Hyun sat in the front row. He was a hard man with hard eyes. When the meeting ended, he approached the president privately. "We could end this now," he said quietly. "We have the technology. We could strike their homeworlds before they understand what is happening. We could burn their capitals and break their fleets. We could make them pay for every species they have erased." Boram looked at him for a long moment. "And then what? We become the new rulers of the galaxy? We become the ones who crush anyone who might challenge us? We become exactly what we are fighting against? We become safe." "No," Boram shook her head. "We become monsters, and I did not survive this long to watch humanity become the thing we hate." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "We wait. We watch. We let them destroy themselves. Evil always does in the end. Our job is to make sure we are still standing when the dust settles. Across the galaxy, Mora's message was spreading. She had spent 2 years running from Council assassins. But she had not been idle. She had made copies of the founding protocol. She had hidden them on 1,000 worlds. She had told her story to anyone who would listen. And finally, the younger species began to ask questions. Why were they always poor while the elder species were rich? Why were they denied certain technologies? Why did their best leaders always seem to fail at critical moments? The first protests began on small worlds, then larger ones, then entire systems. The elder species had spent 10,000 years building a cage for the galaxy. Now that cage was beginning to crack, and somewhere behind their barrier, the humans waited. They did not need to fight. They did not need to conquer. They just needed to wait for the old order to fall apart on its own. It was falling faster than anyone expected. 5 years after the humans disappeared, the galaxy was burning. Mora had done her work well. The truth about the founding protocol had spread to every corner of known space. Younger species who had trusted the Council for generations now understood the truth. They had been controlled. They had been limited. They had been marked for destruction whenever they showed too much promise. The anger was beyond anything the elder species had imagined. On 17 worlds, younger species rose up against Council authority. They seized government buildings. They captured Council representatives. They demanded justice for 10,000 years of hidden crimes. The elder species tried to restore order. They sent fleets. They made threats. But their fleets were stretched thin, and their threats no longer worked. The younger species had seen the humans stop 3,000 warships without firing a shot. If the humans could resist, so could they. Then the elder species turned on each other. The Iron Collective blamed the crystalline Dominion for creating the founding protocol. The Void Walkers accused both of hiding the worst crimes. Ancient agreements broke apart. Secret alliances shattered. Ships that had fought side by side for millennia now pointed weapons at each other. High Arbiter Velthan watched his empire crumble from the Council chamber on Nexus Prime. His crystalline body had grown dull and cracked. He had not slept in months. He had not eaten in weeks. He simply stood at the great window and watched the galaxy tear itself apart. His advisors came to him with a desperate plan. "We must contact the humans," they said. "We must offer them everything. Complete surrender, full disclosure of all secrets, whatever they want. They are the only ones who can restore order now." Velthan laughed. It was a broken sound, like glass grinding against glass. "You think they will help us, after what we planned to do to them?" "They stopped our fleet without killing anyone," an advisor said. "They could have destroyed us. They chose not to. Perhaps they will choose mercy again." For a long time, Velthan was silent. Then he nodded slowly. "Send the message. Offer them everything. Beg if you have to. Just make them answer." The message was sent to Earth's barrier. For 3 days, there was no response. Then, on the 4th day, the barrier opened for the first time in 5 years. A single shuttle emerged. It was small and simple with no weapons and no shields. It flew slowly to Nexus Prime and landed in the central plaza. The entire planet held its breath. 2 humans stepped out. Ambassador Kira Park, older now but still calm, still steady, and Dr. Ha Jun, the scientist who had first discovered the truth about the founding protocol. Velthan met them in the council chamber. He was alone. The other elder species representatives had fled or been captured by their own people. He stood in the center of the empty room, surrounded by chairs that would never be filled again. "You came," he said. "I was not sure you would." Kira looked around the chamber. She remembered standing here 5 years ago, delivering humanity's final message. She remembered the laughter, the dismissal, the absolute certainty that humans did not matter. "We came to deliver our terms," she said. "Name them." Velthon spread his cracked hands. "Whatever you want. Control of the council. Dominion over the elder species. Revenge for your people and all the others we destroyed. It is yours." Kira shook her head. "You still do not understand. We do not want control. We do not want dominion. We certainly do not want to become like you." She pulled out a data pad and placed it on the speaking platform. "These are our terms. First, all suppressed knowledge will be released to every species in the galaxy. Every technology you have hidden, every secret you have kept, everything." Velthon nodded. "Agreed." "Second, humanity will help rebuild. We will share our own technology. We will assist with food production, medicine, and infrastructure. But we will never again participate in galactic governance. We will be neighbors, not rulers." "Agreed." Velthon's voice was desperate. "Anything else?" Dr. Hajun stepped forward. He was a quiet man who preferred laboratories to politics, but his voice was firm. "Third, every leader of every elder species who authorized the founding protocol will face trial, not a human trial. A trial conducted by the younger species you oppressed. They will decide your fate." Velthon's crystalline form flickered. "And if I refuse this term?" "We are not asking for your agreement." Kira's voice was cold. "We are informing you of what will happen. You have no fleet. You have no allies. You have no power left. This is not a negotiation. This is a reckoning." For a long moment, Velthon was silent. He looked at the empty chairs around him. He thought about 10,000 years of dominance, 10,000 years of control, 10,000 years of believing that power made him right. "We were trying to protect the galaxy," he said finally. "Younger species are chaotic, dangerous. They make wars. They destroy themselves. We were trying to maintain order." "You were trying to maintain power," Hajun replied. "There is a difference." "And you?" Velthon looked at Kira. "When you have power, will you be different? Will humanity resist the temptation to control others for their own good?" Kira smiled sadly. "That is exactly why we will never rule. Because we know the answer. Given enough time, given enough power, we would become exactly what you are. The only way to avoid that fate is to refuse the power entirely." She turned to leave. "The younger species will send representatives to collect you within a week. I suggest you use the time to prepare your defense." "Ambassador Park." Velthon's voice stopped her at the door. "Why did you not destroy us? When you had the chance, when you had every right, why did you show mercy?" Kira did not turn around. "Because mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength. It is choosing to be better than your enemies, even when you do not have to be." She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, Velthon stood alone in the ruins of an empire that had lasted 10,000 years. It had taken humanity only 5 years to bring it down, not with weapons, not with fleets, not with conquest, with truth, with patience, with the simple refusal to become what they fought against. 10 years had passed since the humans closed their borders. 5 years had passed since the old council fell. The galaxy was learning to breathe again. It was not easy. The transition from tyranny to freedom never is. Wars still burned on distant worlds. Old hatred still poisoned new relationships. Species that had been taught to hate each other for centuries could not learn to trust overnight. But slowly, carefully, things were changing. The new Galactic Confederation had no permanent leaders. No elder species held special power. Every decision required agreement from representatives of all member worlds. It was messy. It was slow. It was often frustrating. It was also fair. For the first time in 10,000 years, every species had an equal voice. Mora had become a historian. She spent her days documenting the crimes of the founding protocol, ensuring that no one would ever forget what had happened. She traveled from world to world, collecting testimonies, preserving memories. Today, she traveled to Earth. The barrier was gone now. Human space was open to anyone who came in peace, but few aliens visited. There was still fear, still uncertainty, still the memory of the power humanity had shown when they stopped the Council fleet. Mora's ship landed in a city called Seoul. It was a beautiful place, full of green parks and tall buildings that seemed to touch the clouds. Humans walked the streets below, going about their ordinary lives. They did not look like conquerors. They looked like people. Ambassador Kira Park met her at the landing platform. The old woman walked with a cane now, her hair pure white, her face lined with age. But her eyes were still sharp, still calm, still full of quiet strength. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me," Mora said. "The galaxy has many questions about humanity's perspective." Kira smiled. "Then let us walk, and I will try to answer them." They walked through the city together. Kira pointed out buildings and monuments. She told stories about Earth's history, the wars they had fought against each other, the mistakes they had made, the lessons they had learned. "We were not always wise," Kira admitted. "For centuries, we believed that power was the answer to every problem. We fought wars over land, over resources, over ideas. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once." "What changed?" Mora asked. "We grew up." Kira paused beside a memorial wall covered in names. "This wall honors those who died in our last great war 200 years ago. Millions of people. We built weapons that could end all life on our planet, and we came very close to using them. After that, we understood. Power is not the answer. Power is the question, and the answer is knowing when not to use it." They continued walking. Children ran past them, laughing. A young couple sat on a bench holding hands. An old man fed birds in a small garden. Ordinary moments, simple happiness. "The galaxy expected you to conquer us," Mora said, "when you had the power, when you had the justification. Why did you not?" Kira stopped. She looked up at the sky, where ships moved between distant stars. "Because conquest is a trap. You win a war, and you must keep winning forever. You control a people, and you must control them forever. You build an empire, and you must defend it forever. The Council spent 10,000 years maintaining their power. It consumed everything they were. They became nothing but their need to control." She turned to face Mora. "We did not want that fate. We wanted to explore, to create, to discover, to be free. You cannot be free if you are constantly holding others in chains." Mora thought about this for a long time. "But you are still powerful. You still have technology beyond anything we understand. What stops you from changing your mind? What stops a future leader from deciding that conquest is acceptable after all?" "Nothing," Kira admitted. "That is why we refuse to participate in galactic governance. We do not trust ourselves with that much power over others. We remember what we almost became. We remember how close we came to being monsters." She smiled. "And we have you. All of you. The younger species, the older species, everyone. If we ever forget ourselves, if we ever become what we fought against, we hope you will stop us. We hope you will do to us what we did to the Council." On the edge of known space, the exploration vessel UENS New Horizon prepared for departure. It was a beautiful ship, long and graceful, built for discovery rather than war. Captain Jihai stood on the bridge. She was young for a captain, barely 40, with kind eyes and steady hands. Around her, her crew completed final preparations. They were not all human. A gentle one worked at the communications station. An engineer from the Iron Collective maintained the engines. A young crystalline, one of the few who had rejected their elders' ways, served as science officer. Even a void walker drifted near the navigation console, its shadowy form flickering with excitement. This was something new, something that had never existed before. Not a human crew with alien passengers, a true crew from a dozen different species working together as equals. Ji-Hai addressed them before departure. The old galaxy feared what we might become. Humans, aliens, everyone. They feared that power would corrupt us, that we would repeat the mistakes of the past, that we would become the next tyrants. She looked at each crew member in turn. Maybe they were right to be afraid. Maybe we will make mistakes. Maybe some of us will fall. But we are not going out there to conquer. We are not going to control. We are going to explore, to learn, to discover wonders that no one has ever seen. She smiled. Together, as equals, as friends, let us go find out what we can become. The new horizon jumped to uncharted space. Behind it, across the galaxy, 1,000 other ships did the same. Human ships, alien ships, mixed crews from species that had been enemies for centuries. They did not go in conquest. They did not go in fear. They went in hope. And somewhere, in a small apartment on Earth, old Ambassador Kira Park stood at her window and watched the ships disappear into the stars. She thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the anger, the pain, the terrible moment when humanity had learned what the galaxy really thought of them. And then the choice. The hardest choice. To respond with patience instead of violence, with principles instead of revenge, with the quiet certainty that being right was more important than being powerful. She smiled. The galaxy was finally free, not because humanity had saved it, but because humanity had shown everyone that salvation was possible, that power could be refused, that empires could fall without blood, that mercy was not weakness. The stars were bright tonight, brighter than she had ever seen them, and for the first time in a very long time, Kira Park felt hope.